Welcome, Candlelights! Today I'm gonna review the movie Catch and Release and focus on how romantic it is. At the end of my review, you will find a quality rating out of 10 and a romantic rating out of 5. This movie is partly comedy,
I had nothing to do with it.
romance, and drama. It's a contemporary romance, so it's taking place in modern times. Catch and Release is rated as PG-13. For those who are uncomfortable like me when watching sensual scenes, I've counted the scenes for you. The movie has some spicy and physical scenes, which makes one uncomfortable, but the whole movie is not embedded with lustful undertones like many other romantic movies have, to be fair. Many people want to know how a movie will end before they watch it, especially when it comes to romantic movies. Spoiler alert. It depends on how we look at it, but the general audience would say it is a happy ending, more or less. The main story tropes are best friends lover, enemies to lovers, good girl bad boy, and love triangle. The interesting part of the story is that we have two best friends lover stories and two love triangles. We have the dead guy, Grady, who himself is not in the movie, but he is constantly talked about. His fiancée as main character, she is called Gray. Then his three best friends, Fritz, Sam and Dennis. Later on we also get to see his secret mistress, Maureen, and her son. The movie poster encapsulates it very nicely. We don't get to see the dead guy, but what he was all about, namely fishing and the people around him. Let's start with their archetypes. The dead guy Grady, who died in an accident during a boating trip which was his bachelor party. He was definitely an explorer, as he was a fisherman and loved to be in the nature, but also reckless, so a bit a drifter. And since we got to know he cheated on his fiancée, we can say he was also in the corrupt archetype. Then there's Gray, the fiancée of the dead guy. The movie starts during the funeral where at one point she escapes from the people by sitting in a bathtub, hiding behind a shower curtain. Not realizing there is someone in the bathroom, Fritz has intercourse with the caterer, and this is the start of the enemies to lovers trope. She is portrayed as the innocent, sweet girl. Actually, there's not much we can say about her. We don't get to know her very well. The story evolves around the dead guy. Other than that, she is like the everyday girl, the person next door, sweet and lovely. Fritz, our main lead, he's a seducer. He's a Hollywood director, so he's rich. He also belongs to the suave archetype, since he's talented and smooth. Next in line we have Sam, who is kind of a jester. He's a funny guy, but also a bit sloppy and messy, so the clumsy archetype fits him a bit. Dennis is an airy man, a bit an introvert and definitely a lover. There is also parts of the noble archetype in him, but he's also a people pleaser a bit. The definition of hopeless romantic. Dennis and Sam live in the same house. They are roommates. The dead guy Grady also lived there with them. After the funeral, Grady lived with them for a couple of days, and Fritz too. Later on, the story progresses, and it is unveiled that the dead guy was cheating and has a kid. Maureen, the mistress, she's out of money and comes to visit the dead guy. And then the whole story around them starts. Her archetypes are the extrovert and the dabbler. She's into Chinese medicine. She has no ill intentions and is sweet all the time. In the following scenes, I'm gonna show and explain in what way and how our characters are romantic or not. The sum of these examples is helping us to rate the movie in the romantic scale.
What was I thinking? What I should have said as you were leaving is, I love you.
Thinking about the last words you should have said, it shows you love that person. It is a nice touch that after I love you, the title is appearing. She is grieving, as you can see.
Should have at least told you. If it were me, if we were engaged and I had $1 million,
Whoa.
no way.
Her fiancé didn't tell her he had $1 million stashed away. He's right, he should have told her if he really loved her. He tries to comfort her. She fell asleep and he tries to bring her to her bed. Like this kind of little gestures show that you care for someone. The way Fritz looks at her is an early sign of him being gravitated towards her. The same goes for her. These kind of small gentle details, placing a flower to someone's bed, even though she won't recognize the gentle nature, makes something romantic.
I'm just trying to figure out what's more tragic. If this is your laundry or her.
It may be tragic, but what can you do? Only who is in love will understand. He is slowly falling in love with her.
It's Grady's. I thought you might want it.
I think this is the point in the movie where he realizes he is falling in love. The way he looks at her again and then he tries to capture this time. And again. She finds out that the child is actually 3-4 years old, which means that her fiancé cheated on her. This anger leads her to confront Fritz, who lied to her, and we see them doing this. And then they make out. My problem with this is that although Fritz showed signs of affection before, Gray showed 0 signs. Imagine being in love with your future husband, then he dies, and then you find out he cheated on you. Everything happening in a short time frame. Now suddenly she feels attracted to Fritz out of blue, that guy who was seducing the waitress when the funeral happened and Gray witnessed it. This makes no sense. I don't think this is romantic at all. Before the scene, they agree to forget what has happened between them. He agrees to it because she expects this from him, but actually he feels sadness in this moment, because he actually doesn't want it to end. First time we see her bonding with him. Now this is the second time. And of course after the meal, in the night she comes to him. Now she's even posing for him. He doesn't need to do it secretly anymore. Back to Dennis and to his unrequited love. You see the longing in his eyes. They do small talk and Gray asks who he is dating these days. You see him pausing for a second. That detail tells you everything about his situation.
I don't know. What else could it be?
You really want to know?
She pushes him and you see the result.
All right. I'll tell you. For the past 6 years, I've been telling myself the same thing.
He confesses his love and then obviously he gets rejected, of course. This is how a defeated man looks like. They come back from the trip and we all feel for him. But at least someone is happy. He is not falling in love anymore. At this point he realizes he is in love. He tries to ease his pain with alcohol, like you can see how in pain he is. He now knows. These 2 scenes are the only times we see Sam being romantic. In my opinion, there are only 2 romantic lines in the whole movie. This is one of them.
Anything else you want to know?
What's your favorite color?
Gray.
Well, Dennis has hidden his love for 6 years. It was his best friend's girl. After the death of his best friend, probably a tiny bit hope arose inside him. What if he could win her over? Especially finding out that this perfect man was a cheater who would not ignite a little hope. But now he loses the girl to another friend. Nice romantic gesture from Fritz, letting her know why he left without waking her up.
That's nothing. It's less than nothing.
We can see that she breaks his heart by explaining to Dennis that it is less than nothing what's going on between them. Even though Fritz is like a playboy, a seducer, during the movie we have seen his progression and gradually falling in love with her. The character was developing, but I can't say the same for Grey, unfortunately. This shot is very nice because it symbolizes perfectly Grey. Her past needs to be stashed away instead of reminiscing about what could have been. Otherwise, lava floats away, like Fritz is leaving now.
I didn't mean it.
The I didn't mean it excuse.
Back to reality. So,
Nice acting here, displaying the heartbroken guy.
I'll see you.
That is what I mean. If you were truly in love, you wouldn't be embarrassed of anything, anyone. But look at her.
I only said that because
because you were embarrassed. That's okay. Me and you doesn't look good. Not your style, right?
After all the hurt, you still can't help it and look at her like that. She's having a monologue and at least she's now being honest about her situation. Her explanation makes sense, but it still is a weak excuse in my opinion. I don't get why she falls for Fritz. It looks like a fling to me. I don't believe her. I rather believe Fritz, not her. On the other hand, he is a playboy. How much of it can we buy? Look at Sam. He confesses it right away, although I don't think that those two are in love at all. It looks like a partnership to me, rather than being in love. Now she's also being sweet. Look at those dimples. A gift from the director, a romantic scenery. I wish we could have seen more shots like these. The last shots of the movie leave you with a romantic feeling in your stomach. Lovers united in the same frame, while the sun looks at them and the ocean watches them. The other romantic line in the movie, in my opinion the most powerful one.
What took you so long?
In a different movie, this line would have an enormous effect, especially in a story which is a slow burn story. Here it doesn't have its full potential, but nevertheless, it's good. There are 4 relationships we need to talk about. Grey and the dead guy Grady, Grey and Fritz, Grey and Dennis, Maureen and Sam. Let's start from the last one. Maureen and Sam's relationship is almost non-existent. It is definitely in the shallow category. Between Grey and Dennis, there is a one-directional romance. It is an unrequited love. I was rooting for Dennis the whole time. Of course, the normal, sensitive, nice, caring guy doesn't get the girl, but the rich, handsome and the tempting guy. This guy kept his mouth and heart shut for 6 years, never went creepy on her, or tried to seduce her. It was his best friend's girl after all. How could he? And then the whole story happens, where he might have a chance, and of course the girl somehow falls in love with the bad boy. In my opinion, he was easily the most romantic one in the movie, and I would rate it as substantial. The only unromantic thing about him was when he went out with that woman named Persephone, after he found out Gray is having a fling with Fritz. It is not nice for the other woman here, actually wrong. I mean, he's clearly in love with someone else, and out of anger he goes out with the next woman he has access to. On the other hand, he's in no relationship, so kind of okay, it was just one date. But that didn't lead to anything anyway, so it is a minor thing. Gray and Dennis. From my point of view, even though I rooted for Dennis, I kind of believed Fritz falling in love. You could see his transformation, although only sufficiently. Gray's character made no sense to me. Let's imagine one is in love with someone for 6 or more years, then finally one is about to marry that person. The worst happens and that person dies right before the wedding. How much more devastated can a person be? What situation is more cruel than that? On top of that, right after, you find out that all along he was cheating on you and has a child. Later if you find out it's not his child, but the point stands. How can someone right after that fall in love and with the best friend of the spouse? She should be distant to all males for some time, yet after 1-2 days she was acting like nothing happened. What made her fall in love with him? She felt lust with him, not love. The first scene where they make out, that displays it. Her body is attracted to him, not her mind, but somehow at the end she falls for the seducer, who was having an intercourse with a caterer during the funeral. That unsensitive one wins her over. Her point of view I could classify as shallow, or maybe as barely. Gray and the dead guy's relationship was not portrayed in the movie obviously, but we got to see her grief in the beginning of the movie, until the whole thing with Fritz happened. I can understand her being distant to the dead guy after finding out he was cheating on her. It's understandable that she is moving on from the cheater, but nevertheless, this quick with the best friend? It kind of looked like revenge to me. He was cheating on her, sending monthly payments to the mistress and hiding $1 million from her. So I guess her finding someone else makes sense. But this is not romantic when it's out of revenge or is based on lust. I didn't buy it. So overall I am between 2 and 3 hearts. Since the romance was centered around Gray and herself falling for someone didn't convince me enough, I will rate it as 2 hearts. I think that's fair. Now let's talk about the quality of the movie. That's measured differently than the romantic scale. The story feels organic to me. It has a unique take. We haven't talked about the title of the movie at all, for example. Catch and release. It is a fishing term, but obviously it has a double meaning. It symbolizes the subplots happening in the story. All characters have their own catch and release moments. But the story has some flaws. Especially Gray falling in love annoys me. It's not convincing to me. I would easily give it a 1 star, but not the second one. Directing seemed okay to me. It looked like the director went the safe route, didn't take much risk. I expected more scenery shots. I think in that way the director didn't use the full potential of the locations. The artistic difference weren't there. 1 out of 2. Acting. To be honest, the story and the characters didn't require much from the actors. You can't blame the actors if the story has nothing to offer where they can display their art, so they had to work with what they have, and it worked to me. But there was also nothing extraordinary. 1 more time, 1 out of 2. Production was fine. Nothing extraordinary, but totally fine. Not much to say. 1 out of 2. Originality. I found the characters a bit too cliched, but I like the concept of the movie. Again, 1 out of 2. To sum it up, overall a decent movie, where the romantic aspects are a bit on the surface, but are not deep enough. I like the movie, and it is totally watchable, if you like romantic movies, of course. So I rate it 5 stars out of 10 and 2 hearts out of 5. Farewell candlelights, and maybe we meet again soon. Thanks for watching.